Hare Krishna. Today is Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Srila Gadadhar Pandit Prabhu's disappearance day. Therefore, we will discuss about their lives and activities instead of reading from Srimad Bhagavatam. Actually, there are two types of Bhagavats. One is the book Bhagavat and the other is the person Bhagavat. So, discussing about a person Bhagavatam is also Bhagavat class, Srimad Bhagavatam class. Srila Bhakti, first we'll discuss about Srila Gadadhar Pandit Goswami. Srila Gadadhar Pandit is one of the Panchatattvas. Krishna appeared in 5 features. Krishna appeared as a devotee. Krishna appeared as the Swarup, the Rupa of a devotee. That is, Krishna appeared as Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Balaram appeared as Nityananda Prabhu. So Krishna and Balaram are Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu. Brojendra Nandana Jai Shochi Shuto Hoilo Shei Balaram Hoilo Nitai. In Golok Vrindavan, one who is Sri Krishna, who is Krishna in Golok Vrindavan, that same personality appeared as the son of Mother Sachi, Sachi Shuta Vailashi. The son of Nanda Maharaj in Vrindavan, Brajendra Nandan Krishna, became Sachi Nandan Gaurahari. And Balaram Hoilo Nitai. And Balaram became Nityananda Prabhu. And Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam, then Bhaktavataram, the incarnation of a devotee or the incarnation of the Lord Mahavishnu appeared as Advaita Acharya Prabhu. And Bhakta Shakti, the potency, the internal potency, the Ladini Shakti, the manifestation of Ladini Shakti, Srimati Radharani, is Gadadhar Pandit. So Brajendra Nandan Jai Shochi-shuto Hoilo Shei Balaram Hoilo Nitai. Brajendra Nandan Krishna became Sachinandan Gaurhari. Nityananda Prabhu is none other than Balaram himself. Jai Shri Shri Krishna Balaram ki Jai. Jai Shri Shri Radha Madan Mohan Lalita Vishakha Devi ki Jai. Jai Shri Shri Gaur Nitai ki Jai. So, Namo Panchatattatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam. Then Bhaktavataram, Bhakta Avatar is Advaita Acharya Prabhu, and Bhakta Shakti is Gadadhar Pandit, Srimati Radharani is Gadadhar Pandit. And Bhakti Akhang, the devotee, Narad Muni appeared as Srivas Thakur. So this is the Panchatattva. Panchatattatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktiakham Namami Bhakta Shaktikam. And that is, this Panchatattva is Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Gadadhar Pandit is the incarnation of Srimati Radharani. So today is Gadadhar Pandit's disappearance day. On this day, Gadadhar Pandit disappeared. Gadadhar Pandit was Mahaprabhu's one of the most intimate associates. Naturally, Krishna appeared as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, so Krishna's pleasure potency, Srimati Radharani, is Gadadhar Pandit. Naturally, therefore, they have a very, very deep relationship among themselves. Gadadhar Pandit was a few years younger than Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But they were very, very intimate. They were together most of the time, all the time. And Gadadhar Pandit from his childhood was very sober, very quiet, very peaceful, and he used to like to be in a solitary place. He did not like to be in the middle of crowd, and he was very withdrawn, and he was also very renounced. So this has been described as the nature of Gadadhar Pandit, whereas Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was extremely naughty when he was young. He was naughty, he was flamboyant, he was quarrelsome. He used to invite people, come, have a debate based on Nyaya. So this Nyaya Shastra is logic. So by means of logic, he used to make right appear to be wrong and wrong appear to be right. He was such a brilliant person. It has been described that Mahaprabhu could make the day appear to be night and night appear to be day. And then he would reverse it and prove that yes, day is day and night is night. Not that he used to turn the day into night, but through logic, through argument, he used to. So that shows that he was such a brilliant personality, extremely brilliant personality. And Mahaprabhu's brilliance has been established as the greatest scholar of India at that time by him defeating Keshav Kashmiri. Keshav Kashmiri, he was from Kashmir, very learned scholar. Kashmir was the seat of the Vedic Brahmins those days. And Keshav Kashmiri, from Kashmir he traveled all over India. He went from north, he traveled to the west, then south, then middle. And then the last place that he had to defeat was Navadvip. So through this arrangement, what actually happened is Keshav Kashmiri defeated all the scholars of India, and the only place that was left to be defeated was the scholars of Navadvip. Navadvip also was a very prominent place of learning those days. But Keshav Kashmiri's fame spread in such a way that when the scholars of Navadvip got to know that Keshav Kashmiri was coming, in order to save themselves from the shame of being defeated, they ran away from Navadvip under various pretexts. So Navadvip became empty of all the scholars. All the scholars left. And it has been described that some scholars were hiding in their house, they wouldn't come out. The only person that was left in Navadvip, only scholar that was left in Navadvip was Nimai Pandit. Nimai Pandit, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Pandit means scholar, learned scholar. So Nimai the scholar was left. But he was only 14 years old at that time. So Keshav Kashmiri was waiting for the other scholars to return, He heard about Nimai Pandit as a very learned scholar, but he thought he was only 14 years old. So why waste my time? Rather wait for the great scholars, the big scholars to come back. But amazingly, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu defeated Keshav Kashmiri. Not amazingly, rather we can say naturally, he defeated Keshav Kashmiri in a very amazing way. Keshav Kashmiri, one afternoon, he was walking on the bank of the Ganges. And there he saw, under a tree, one boy is teaching some students. So Keshav Kashmiri became curious and asked him, "Who are you?" So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he saw Keshav Kashmiri, he offered his respect to him. And Keshav Kashmiri asked him, "So who are you?" And he said, "My name is Nimai, I am the son of Jagannath Mishra." So Keshav Kashmiri said, "Oh, so you are the Nimai Pandit." So Mahaprabhu, in a very humble way, told him, "Well, actually people out of affection call me Pandit, but actually I am not really a scholar." So Keshav Kashmiri said, "Okay, I can see that you are very humble, but still come, let's have an exchange, let's have a fight." Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, "Look, I am nothing compared to you. But since I have got this good fortune of coming across you, let me take advantage of your scholarship, your learning. Let me learn something from you." So Keshav Kashmiri was pleased and he said, "So tell me, what do you want to hear from me?" So Mahaprabhu said, "Why don't you glorify the Ganges that is flowing?" So Keshav Kashmiri, with the speed of the movement of the Ganges, the flow of Ganges, he recited 100 verses glorifying Ganges right there. One after another, spontaneously, he just made the verses in glorification of Ganges and recited there. Then everyone was spellbound. Such beautiful compositions and such beautiful descriptions of the glory of Mother Ganges. So Keshav Kashmiri asked, "So how did you like it?" Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, it's nice, very nice, excepting a few mistakes here and there." So Keshav Kashmiri became furious. He said, "In Keshav Kashmiri's composition, there is no mistake. What do you know about poetry? What do you know about alankar, ornamentation of poetry? You are just a teacher of grammar, teaching some students and young boys, and you dare to find mistakes in my composition." So Mahaprabhu just sat there quietly, without making any statement. Then Keshav Kashmiri asked, "So what's the mistake according to you?" Then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took one verse from these 100 compositions, the 64th verse, and he pointed out 6 mistakes in one shloka. And Keshav Kashmiri was spellbound, he was defeated. And he asked him, "How do you, I recited this poetry practically with the speed of the flow of the Ganges. And how did you remember this verse? How did you memorize this verse?" Then Mahaprabhu said that just as someone is a Shrutidhar, memorizes just by hearing sometimes someone can also retain everything in his memory as well. But Keshav Kashmiri was defeated. Like he had to accept the points that Mahaprabhu made. One of the point that Mahaprabhu made was very beautiful out of these 6, and we can relate to that mistake. The others were alankaric mistakes. The Sanskrit poetry follows a very strict structure, and the ornamentations have to be in a certain way. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu pointed out those mistakes. And one mistake was a descriptive mistake. That descriptive mistake was Keshav Kashmiri described Lord Shiva as Bhavanu Bhartri. Bhavanu Bhartri means the husband of Bhavani. Husband of Bhavani. Bhavani is Parvati, the wife of Lord Shiva. And Bhartri means the husband. So he described Lord Shiva as the husband of Bhavani. But then Mahaprabhu pointed out, but the expression Bhavani means that the wife of Bhava, that is the wife of Lord Shiva. So this Bhavanu Bhartri actually then means the husband of the wife of Bhava, husband of the wife of Lord Shiva. As if the husband, the wife of Lord Shiva has another husband other than Lord Shiva. So Keshav Kashmiri was completely devastated. So we can see that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, by defeating the greatest scholar of that time in India, became the greatest scholar, the uncontested scholar of India. And that also at the age of 14. And Mahaprabhu used to challenge when he was young, even when he was younger, at that time also Mahaprabhu used to challenge people, and he used to defeat everybody. He used to defeat everybody through the logic. But Gadadhar Pandit was very quiet, completely opposite to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Quiet, composed. And so one day, he complained, Nimai, why do you waste your time like this, like unnecessary argument? Whereas the goal of life is to become a devotee of Krishna. Serving the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the ultimate goal of life. But why are you wasting your time in unnecessary arguments? Then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told Gadadhar Pandit, Gadadhar, one day I'll become such a great devotee that Brahma and Shiva will even start to worship me. So this is how Mahaprabhu actually predicted his identity. He revealed his identity. So, and it happened when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to Gaya to offer the Shraddha ceremony to his father and forefathers. There he met Ishwar Puri again, and Ishwar Puri gave him initiation, and then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was completely transformed. He started to display Dibba Unmadana, divine madness, transcendental madness. He became mad. Mahaprabhu became completely mad in ecstasy of Krishna consciousness. So when he returned to Navadvip, people thought that he became mad. They didn't understand that this was a transcendental madness out of his love for Krishna. But they started to this could think that he has got Vata Vyadhi. He has got the disease that is caused by the imbalance of air, which is actually madness, Vayu Rog. And at that time, Mahaprabhu sometimes used to be completely uncontrollable. One day, Gadadhar Pandit came to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with some offerings and with some remnants from the Lord. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked Gadadhar, Gadadhar, where is Krishna? Where is Krishna? And he started to cry. And Gadadhar didn't know what to do. He said, Nimai, Gadadhar, Nimai, Krishna is in your heart. Krishna is there in your heart. And when Gadadhar said that, then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu tried to tear open his chest. He started to scratch with his nails as if he was trying to... He became so moved by that statement, by that information. He wanted to see Krishna in his heart, in his transcendental ecstasy. And Sachimata was there. She became very worried, seeing him doing like that. Like he was, with his nails, he was trying to open his heart, open his chest. Then Gadadhar told him, look, Krishna is going to come very soon. Don't worry, he'll come. He's coming just now. And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu became pacified. So seeing that Sachimata expressed his appreciation for Gadadhar. He said, although Gadadhar is just a young boy, but he's so intelligent and he can control Nimai when he is in his madness, when he is displaying his madness. And at that time he requested Gadadhar Pandit that Gadadhar, you please stay with Nimai all the time. Never leave him. Always be with him. And Gadadhar Pandit accepted that instruction of Sachimata. So he stayed with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu most of the time. And Gadadhar Pandit was very devotionally, spiritually inclined from his childhood. And he was also very close to Mukunda Datta. Mukunda was another associate of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So one day Mukunda told Gadadhar, a great Vaishnava has come, so let's go and see him. And that person was Pundarik Vidyanidhi. Jai Shri Shri Krishna Balaram ki Jai. Jai Shri Shri Radha Madan Mohan Lalita Vishakha Devi ki Jai. Jai Shri Shri Gaur Nitai ki Jai. Srila Gadadhar Pandit ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur ki Jai. So then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Gadadhar Pandit stayed with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I'm sorry. So we are actually describing Pundarik Vidyanidhi. Gadadhar Pandit got to know from Mukunda that Pundarik Vidyanidhi, a great Vaishnava, has arrived. And so they went to see him. But when Gadadhar saw that Pundarik Vidyanidhi was a very apparently indulging in a lot of material luxury. He was a very aristocratic person, very indulging in luxury and comforts, dressed in very nice way, fine clothes and somebody was fanning him. And he was sitting on the big asan, which was like a bed. So Gadadhar developed some sort of resentment. He felt, he's a Vaishnava. What kind of Vaishnava is he? So he had that feeling in his heart, and Mukunda could understand that. So then Mukunda started to recite a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam. And Aho Baki Stanokala Kutam, describing Putana. Putana, Baki, the sister of Baka demon, came with her breasts smeared with Kalakuta, the most deadly poison, to kill Krishna. Jighangsang apayayati, in order to kill Krishna. But what did Krishna do? Krishna gave her the position of Dhatri Gati, the position of her foster mother. The mother, sometimes in the Vedic culture, some ladies tend the children and give even breastfeed the babies, although they are not the mother. They are like Ambika in Krishna. Krishna's Dhatri Matas like that were Ambika and Kilimba. So they used to breastfeed Krishna. And Krishna gave Putana that position, practically the position of his mother, although she came to kill Krishna. Now when Pundarik Vidyanidhi heard that verse, Mukunda singing that verse, he just fainted in ecstasy. So Gadadhar Pandit then recognized, oh, he's such an exalted Vaishnava and I committed an offense, even thinking unfavorably about him. Developing some resentment about him is in my heart, although I didn't express it. So he felt very, very sad, very bad, very guilty. And so then he decided in order to counteract that offense, he decided to take initiation from Pundarik Vidyanidhi. So Gadadhar Pandit actually became the disciple of Pundarik Vidyanidhi. Now it's an interesting thing to note here. Who is Gadadhar Pandit? Is Radharani. Who is Pundarik Vidyanidhi? King Vrishabhanu. Do you see a link? Radharani is the daughter of King Vrishabhanu. So in this pastime, although he did not appear as Pundarik Vidyanidhi's son, but he became his spiritual son by accepting initiation from him. After Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took sannyas and went to Jagannath Puri, Gadadhar Pandit also went to Jagannath Puri. And he stayed in Jagannath Puri. He took Kshetra sannyas. He thought that Mahaprabhu will now stay in Jagannath Puri, the land of Lord Jagannath, so I'll also take sannyas here. Kshetra sannyas is a kind of sannyas when one takes shelter of a holy dham and he never leaves. He takes a vow not to leave that place. So Gadadhar Pandit took Kshetra sannyas in Jagannath Puri. But when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu decided to go to Vrindavan, Gadadhar Pandit also wanted to go with him. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, look, you can't go with me because you have taken a vow of Kshetra sannyas. Then Gadadhar said, who cares about my vow? Like all these vows are to get you, and so I don't care about my vow. I'll go with you. But Mahaprabhu said, no, you have taken a vow, so you must stick to that vow. And he insisted that Gadadhar Pandit stayed on and fulfilled his vow. So Mahaprabhu left and Gadadhar Pandit fainted. So this is how deep was Gadadhar Pandit's love for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Gadadhar Pandit was famous for reciting Srimad Bhagavatam. And he used to recite Srimad Bhagavatam in such a brilliant way that even Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to sit for hours listening to his recitation of Srimad Bhagavatam. And in that sense also we can see who can recite Srimad Bhagavatam better than Srimati Radharani herself. And Srinivas Thakur described in his pastimes that it has been described actually in Bhakti Ratnakar, that when Srinivas Acharya went to Jagannath Puri, his desire was to study Srimad Bhagavatam. His dream was to study Srimad Bhagavatam under Gadadhar Pandit's tutelage. But when he arrived in Jagannath Puri, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu already left this planet and Gadadhar Pandit was completely heartbroken. And many of Mahaprabhu's associates left. For example, Raghunath Das Goswami left. He couldn't stay in Jagannath Puri anymore. And he went to Vrindavan to give up his body, jumping from Govardhan. So, Srila Patan, he thought that he would go to Vrindavan and give up his body. In this way, due to Mahaprabhu's separation, everyone was so heartbroken, they were practically dead due to the separation of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And same was the condition of Gadadhar Pandit. So when Srinivas Acharya went to Gadadhar Pandit and one expressed his desire to study Srimad Bhagavatam under his tutelage, Gadadhar Pandit told him, look, I can't teach. I can't even recite Srimad Bhagavatam anymore. I can't even read Srimad Bhagavatam anymore. So I can't teach you, but you take my Bhagavatam. So he gave him his Srimad Bhagavatam with a handwritten, which was naturally those days there was no printing press, so it was handwritten. And Srinivas Acharya, when he opened it, he found that practically the Bhagavatam was wiped out due to the tears of Gadadhar Pandit. When Gadadhar Pandit would recite Srimad Bhagavatam, tears would flow in such a way from his eyes that the letters written with ink was obliterated, was wiped out, washed away. So this is how deep was his love. And also Gadadhar Pandit was, he used in Jagannath Puri, he used to worship Gopinath, which is known as Tota Gopinath. And Bhakti Ratnakar described that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu actually disappeared in the deity of Tota Gopinath. That was a worshipable deity of Gadadhar Pandit. So this is how wonderful was the pastime of Gadadhar Pandit. Completely absorbed in the activities of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He didn't have any other consideration. All the time just absorbed in serving Mahaprabhu, remembering Mahaprabhu. Therefore Bhakti Vinod Thakur described Smara Gaura Gadadhara Keli Kalam Bhava Gaura Gadadhara Paksha Charam Shrinu Gaura Gadadhara Keli Gaura Gadadhara Charu Katham Bhaja Godruma Kanana Kunja Vidhum. Always remember the activities of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with Gadadhar Pandit. Smara Gaura Gadadhara Keli Kalam Bhava Gaura Gadadhara Pakshacharam. Become the associate of, or remain with Gaura Gadadhar. Be with him, be with them all the time. And Shrinu Gaura Gadadhara Charu Katham. Always hear the beautiful kathas, the descriptions and instructions of Gaura Gadadhar. In this way, Bhaja Godruma Kanana Kunja Vidhum. Worship the moon of Godruma Kanana Kunja in the bower of the Godrum forest garden. So today is Srila Gadadhar Pandit's disappearance day. Today is also the disappearance day of Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur. Bhakti Vinod Thakur was another extremely brilliant personality who appeared in a very aristocratic Bengali family as the son of Ananda Mohan Datya. And he was an extremely brilliant person. Naturally, these personalities are not conditioned souls. They are not conditioned living entities. They are the eternally liberated souls. So they come in their spiritual identity, in their eternally liberated condition from the spiritual sky. Bhakti Vinod Thakur came with a very special mission to revive the teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And one very famous Bengali personality, Shishir Kumar Ghosh, described him as the seventh Goswami. The six Goswamis of Vrindavan were during Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's time, but he is the seventh Goswami who appeared in the land of Bengal. And Bhakti Vinod Thakur, from his childhood, was a very brilliant person. And those days, Bengal, especially Calcutta, was the seat of the British. The British came to India and set their first establishment in Calcutta. And they, after setting up their establishment, they introduced the British education system, because they very, very expertly figured out that in order to influence the community and have the control over this country, they have to have the Indians trained up with their ideas. And with them, they wanted to control the country. And they did that very effectively. First, the traders came and established East India Company in Calcutta. Then this East India Company they developed their own army, and through their political struggle and political maneuvering took over the land. They defeated the Nawab of Bengal called Siraz-ud-Dowla, and they took over possession of Bengal. Bengal was their first colony, so to say. And that also they did by bribing Siraj-ud-Dowlah, the Nawab of Bengal's two most prominent generals, Mir Jafar and Mir Qasim. And so when Siraj-ud-Dowlah was fighting with the British, his main army were just standing there, not fighting. And the British very easily defeated him, captured him, and killed him, and took over Bengal. Because he was the ruler of Bengal, so defeating him, they took over Bengal. Then they sent the missionaries, Christian missionaries, to spread Christianity. Will Durant, one American philosopher, actually described mainly about Christianity, that a religion remains a religion for first few years. Then it becomes a philosophy. Then it becomes a political convenience. And then it becomes a mere ritual. And it's very appropriate in case of Christianity. We see it was a religion only at the beginning. Actually, Nietzsche commented that the last Christian died on the cross. The last Christian died on the cross. That is, Jesus was the only Christian. There was no Christians after him. So they came, the Christianity became a political convenience. The British and French and Portuguese, wherever they went, they actually, first they promoted Christianity, they converted people. Because they knew that the religion is the weakest, the greatest weakness of common people. Where everybody naturally is God-fearing. So if they can be captured by conversion, then they'll be sold out to their concepts. And they sent there, so at that time you can see, they sent the missionaries, and those missionaries went, they were not only preaching Christianity, but they also established schools. Missionary schools for the boys and convents for the girls. And they started to educate them. Mainly at that time, initially it was only boys' schools. And in a way, Bhakti Vinod Thakur was a product of that culture. And because in Bengal, especially in Calcutta, all the progressive-minded people were sending their children to the schools set up by the British. One of the reasons for that also was that Hinduism at that time became so corrupt and so superstitious that and all kinds of undesirable activities were going on in the name of religion, that the educated, intelligent class of people, progressive-minded people, became very, very averse to Hinduism, Hindu culture. They did not want to identify themselves with this culture. Like, there were so many superstitious activities like sati, then dowry system, child marriage. Child marriage is not bad, it is a culture, because the understanding was that before the girl develops any kind of attraction for any other boy, she is made to think about her husband only. So they would get married at a very young age, and in most cases the girls would stay in the father's house until she grew up. And then only she went to the house of the in-laws. But unfortunately, taking advantage of this custom, sometimes all kinds of undesirable activities are going on, like a 70-year-old man would get married to a 80-year-old girl. And that also was because the Brahmanas had this Kulin Pratha, that among the Brahmanas also there are different classes of Brahmanas. Not only a Brahmana girl would get married to a Brahmana boy, but the Brahmana boy must be from the high class Brahmana family. Otherwise, if the girl got married to a boy from a high class Brahmana family, then her family would be elevated, it was considered as an social achievement for them. And as a result of that, one custom started that the Kulin Brahmins, this high class Brahmins, among the Brahmanas also there are classes. The high class Brahmanas would have many, many wives. They would, and because the daughters, the fathers of the girls would want to get the daughter married to a high class Brahmana, like if they found some Brahmana who is from high class, they would consider that's a good opportunity. And these Brahmanas would marry many, many girls, and they would not even bring the girls to their house. The girl would stay in the father's house, and they would just travel around. One day in this wife's house, another day in that wife's house, and this way they would travel around. And then if the husband died, then the wife is expected to become a sati. And what they would do is tie up the girl by hands and feet and throw her in the funeral pyre. So because of all these undesirable, abominable activities, cultured people, progressive-minded people became very, very averse to the Hindu culture. And then the British actually took advantage of that, and they started the schools, and intelligent aristocratic Bengalis started to send their children into those schools to get educated. And what kind of education they got? They got Christian education. So although externally they were Indians, but internally many of them became westernized. Western, not westernized, but became Western, became Englishmen. I remember even in my childhood I saw some people, some families, in their house they were so British actually. They would, even at home, they would speak in English. The father would speak with their children in English. And they would speak to the servants with a kind of accent. The servants, they would speak in Bengali, but they would speak Bengali with an accent the way the British used to speak Bengali to their servants. It was, and that was even after the independence of India. So this is how the British actually captured India. They not only captured the land, geographical land, they also captured the minds and mentality and the culture of the people. And that's why you can see that although India has become independent from the British, but politically they became independent, but they haven't actually become free from the British culture. They're still subservient to the British culture. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur was educated in that education system. But we can see that he was not affected by that. Bhaktivinoda Thakur was not affected by the British culture. Rather, he used to teach the British people about the greatness of Indian culture. I'll come to that. But before that, we want to also make one point, that at that time the educated and cultured people of Bengal became so disgusted with Hinduism that that many of them were becoming Christians. They were converting into Christianity. Many high-class Bengalis actually became Christians at that time because they felt that this is the real progressive religion and progressive way to lead the life. So a group of thoughtful people, concerned people, wanted to, in order to stop that, they started a new religion which was a kind of a blend between Hinduism and Christianity. They called it Brahma Samaj. They took the teachings from the Upanishads that Brahma is the ultimate. The impersonal Brahma is the ultimate, and all these worshipping of the deities and all, they are all superstitious rituals. So there is no need to worship the way the Hindus are worshipping. And they developed a new kind of religion called Brahma Samaj. They worship the impersonal Brahman, no worshipping the deities. And in this way they tried to counteract the conversion of Christianity into Christianity. And like the people, those who started this Brahma Samaj are one Raja Ram Mohan Roy and Maharshi Devendranath Thakur, the grandfather of Rabindranath Tagore. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur was very closely connected also to the Tagore family. And he was naturally influenced by the Brahma Samaj culture. And so the Brahmins wanted to convert or get him also, Bhaktivinoda Thakur. But by that time, Bhaktivinoda Thakur already came across Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings. Through a friend, he came across Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings. He got a copy of Chaitanya Charitamrita, and he actually was initially, Bhaktivinoda Thakur was averse to Radha Krishna's Braja Leela, Vrindavan pastimes. He thought that was immoral. These activities of Radha Krishna in Vrindavan, the way Krishna acted in Vrindavan, was immoral. So he kind of stayed away. Initially, he stayed away from Krishna's Braja Leela. But when he read this Chaitanya Charitamrita, then he realized that what Krishna's Braja Leela actually is. This is the highest spiritual activity of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He understood not only what is Madhurya Leela, but the greatness of Parakya Bhav. The relationship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead with His eternal consorts without the social convention of marriage. So then he became attracted to Radha Krishna, and he got sold out to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And from then onwards it was his conquering the society to establish the glory of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He started to write himself, and he was such a brilliant writer. As I was saying, that this song that about Gaur Gadadhar, about Gadadhar Pandit and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, is written in Sanskrit. Smara Gaura Gadadhara Keli Kalam, Bhava Gaura Gadadhara Paksha Charam, Shrinu Gaura Gadadhara Charu Katham, Bhaja Godruma Kanana Kunja Bithum. He was such a brilliant scholar that he wrote poetry in Sanskrit in such a wonderful way. And This one has, I think, about 29 or 30, no, 22 verses in this. Bhaja Godruma Kanana Kunja Vidhum Jadite Haripad Saroj Sudha Rasapana Param Hridayam Satatam Pariritta Griham Kali Bhavamayam Bhaja Godruma Kanana Kunja Vidhum Dhana Jovana Jivana Rajya Sukham Nahi Nityam Anukshana Nasa Param Tajagramma Katha Sakalang Vifalam Bhajagodruma Kanana Kunja Vidhum Ramani Jana Sanga Sukhancha Sakhe Charame Bhayadang Purushartha Haram Harinama Sudhara Samatta Matir Bhajagodruma Kanana Kunja Vidhum. Such brilliant writing, such wonderful poetic expression, such wonderful meter and rhyme. And that was the brilliance of Bhaktivinoda Thakur's writing, that his rhyme and his meter was unique, very brilliant. And he naturally wrote in Bengali. He wrote, actually there is a book by Bhaktivinoda Thakur called Jaiva Dharma. It is also now available in English, so you can read that book. Personally, I feel that that book actually has the essence of the entire Vedic understanding, the essence of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings. The essence of the Vedas is Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. And the conclusion of that essence is Chaitanya Charitamrita. Demonstration of that essential teaching is Chaitanya Charitamrita. But what Bhaktivinoda Thakur gave in Jaiva Dharma is unique. Like you can say entire Srimad Bhagavatam, entire Upanishad, entire Bhagavad Gita, the conclusions of all the scriptures and Chaitanya Charitamrita has been presented in just one book, Jaiva Dharma. And it's a comparative nature also. He compared this teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, or the essence of the Vedas, he compared it with impersonalism, he compared it with Shakta philosophy, he compared it with Islam, he compared it with Christianity, and established that this is the highest conclusion of spiritual understanding, the topmost of spiritual philosophy. Jaiva Dharma, which means the living, the dharma of a living entity. What is Sanatana Dharma? What is the dharma of a living entity? What is the dharma of a spirit soul? The dharma of the spirit soul is Krishna consciousness. Jiver Sarup Hoy Krishna Nityada. And his Bengali poems are also so beautiful. He wrote many. Actually, Bhaktivinoda Thakur in a way presented the philosophy, the Vedic philosophy, through his poetic writing. Through poetry he has done that. Like for example, he is giving the teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. What is the teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? What is the essence of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings? He is presenting it as Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Jive Daya Kori Shaparshad Shiyodham Shaho Abotori Ottonto Durlabh Prem Koribare Dan Shikhaye Sharanagati Bhagotero Pran Doinno Atma Nivedan Goptritte Baron Obosho Rokhibe Krishna Vishwas Palon Bhakti Anukul Matra Karjero Shikar Bhakti Pratikul Bhav Barjalangikar. This is the first poetry of a section called Sharanagati. He is describing, mind you, it is difficult to write philosophy. Philosophy is very it's such a complex subject because the thoughts there are so deep that it is difficult to present it in writing. Therefore, the philosophical writings are difficult to read, isn't it? Novels we can read very quickly, but philosophical writing is very difficult to read. Because it is difficult to write philosophy. Now Bhaktivinoda Thakur is presenting philosophy in poetry. So what an expertise. And here see what he is describing. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu jive daya kori shaparshad shiyodham shaho abutori. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in order to bestow his mercy upon the living entities, descended with his associates and his dham, his abode. Shaparshad shiyodham shaho abutori ottonto durlabho prem koribare dan. In order to bestow Krishna prem, which is extremely rare, ottonto durlabho prem koribare dan. In order to bestow, in order to give that very, very rare Krishna prem, Shikhai Sharanagati Bhakotero Pran. He is teaching Sharanagati, which is the life and soul of devotion. And what are those Sharanagati? There are 6 kinds of Sharanagati. There are 6 aspects of Sharanagati. Doino, humbleness. Atma Nivedan, surrendering of the self. Goptritte Baron, accepting Krishna as the only Lord and Master. Abhashya Rakhibe Krishna Vishwas Palon, to have the implicit faith that Krishna will save me all the time. And Bhakti Anukul Matra Karjero Shikar, accepting whatever is favorable to Krishna consciousness, and Bhakti Pratikul Bhav Varjan Angikar, and to reject whatever is detrimental to Krishna consciousness. Sharango Sharanagati Hoibe Jahar Tahar Prarthana Shune Brajendra Kumar. Tahar Prarthana Shune Srinanda Kumar. One who will be able to accept the shelter of Krishna, surrender unto Krishna through these 6 aspects, Sharango, with the 6 limbs of Sharanagati. One who will accept that, Krishna, the son of Nanda Maharaj, will listen to his prayers. Taharo prarthana shune Srinanda Kumar. Rupo sanatane pare, rupo sanatano pade, dante trino kori, bhakoti vinoda kahe duhu pado dhari. Falling at the feet of Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami with straw in his mouth, in a very, very humble way. Rupa sanatano pade, dante trino kori, Bhakoti Vinoda kahe duhu pado dhari. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is praying to them, holding on to their lotus feet, that Amito Kadia Kadia Bole Amito Adham, crying, shedding tears, he is saying, I am very fallen. Shikhai Sharanagati Karohe Uttam, teaching me how to surrender to Krishna. Please make me qualified. Please elevate me to the topmost position of life. Such a beautiful and simple way of presenting Mahaprabhu's teaching. And not only he wrote in Sanskrit and Bengali, not only he wrote in Bengali and in Sanskrit, he wrote in English in such a beautiful way. I remember once I was explaining one of Bhaktivinoda Thakur's poem, English poem, called the Sharagrahi Vaishnava. In this poetry, Bhaktivinoda Thakur actually gave the entire Vedic philosophy, mind you, in English poetry. And just that, the explanation of that poetry made this person that I was explaining he was completely sold out to Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He was sympathetic towards Krishna consciousness. And he is not a devotee. He is not a full-time devotee. He was just an acquaintance of mine. And it's such a beautiful piece of writing. And what he did is, he took the copy, he took that poetry, made copies and distributed it among his friends. Sitaram knows him, you know him, it's Raghavan. He was completely he was amazed at this brilliance of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He's from Cape Town actually, he's a very successful man. And that also, see the poetry, as I was telling about Bhaktivinoda Thakur's meter and rhyme and selection of words and presentation of the theme. He's starting it by saying, alas for those who spend their days in festive mirth and joy. The dazzling, deadly liquid forms their hearts forever employ. Alas for those who spend their days in festive mirth and joy. Alas, I feel bad. Alas, it's such a pity. Alas for those, it's a pity for those people who are spending their time, spending their days in festive mirth and joy. Trying to enjoy in the material nature through festivity and merrymaking. Alas for those who spend their days in festive mirth and joy. The dazzling, deadly liquid forms their hearts forever employ. The material nature, what is this manifested nature? Its form is liquid. Liquid means, although it has a form, but it doesn't really have a form. Like, have you seen a fountain? The water is gushing out. It appears that there is a form, but does it have a form? It's a continuous flow of water creating an impression that it has a form, but actually it doesn't have a form. The liquid form. And how is that form? Dazzling. It's very grand, very glamorous, dazzling. But at the same time, it's deadly. See his expressions. The dazzling, deadly liquid forms their hearts forever employ. Their heart is attached to that form. Their heart is completely focused on, sold out to that transient, destructive, yet glamorous material manifestation. Dazzling, deadly liquid forms their hearts forever employ. The shining bottles charm their eyes and draw their hearts' embrace. The slaves of wine can never rise from what we call disgrace. The shining bottle, he is comparing the materialistic people to a bunch of drunkards. What does a drunkard do? The drunkard lives to him, that this bottle of liquor, bottle of alcohol, is the most coveted thing, most desirable thing. The shining bottle charm their eyes and draw their heart's embrace. The slaves of wine can never rise from what we call disgrace. Like, what is the existence of a drunkard? He's rolling in the gutter. His life is a disgrace. And he can never rise out of that. Now the materialistic people, their situation is also like that. What is the shining bottle? The shining bottle is this glamorous objects of this material nature that are alluring him for his sense gratification. that come, enjoy. But what do you get? Do you get enjoyment? No. You lose yourself, you degrade yourself. The flesh is not our own alone. The flesh is not our own, alas. The mortal frame a chain. The flesh, another stanza he is explaining. This body is made of flesh. This flesh is not our own. This flesh is not ours, although we are claiming that this is our body. But this body made of flesh and bone is not ours. And the mortal frame a chain. This mortal frame, that perishable, the mortal frame, the body, is actually a chain with which we have been tied down to this material nature. The mortal frame a chain. I'm forgetting the third line. And will try to rise again. The fourth line is going, will try to rise again. So the soul will, at some point, will try, or it should try to come out of this material bondage of this body, and rise to his spiritual identity. It's so brilliant. Another stanza from this poem is, forget the past that sleeps, never future dream at all. Live with the time that are with thee, and progress thee shall call. Forget the past that sleeps. Don't dwell in the past. But what do we do in most of the times? Oh, it was so nice. When I was at home before I became a devotee, I was so happy. I was enjoying so much. Everybody in my house treated me like a prince. But it's dead. It's why you dwell on that. Forget the past that sleeps. Never future dream at all. Don't dream about the future. Tomorrow I'll become a king. Today I may be a pauper, but tomorrow I'll become a king. Never future dream at all. Don't dream about the future. Both are meaningless. Past is gone and the future is unseen. But live with the time that are with thee. Live with the time that are with you. Be here now. Live with the time that is with you. So be concerned, be completely focused with this moment. And consider how you are going to utilize this time. That is with you. This present is with you. Past is gone and future is beyond your control. But what is in your control is now. So live with the time that are with thee. And progress thee shall call. And that is called progress. And he is ending it by saying, O Shadagrahi, Vaishnava soul. He is describing a devotee, a Vaishnava, who is leading the path. He is praying to him, please lead me on to Vrindavan and Spirit's power declare. O Shadagrahi, Vaishnava soul, thou art an angel fair. O Shadagrahi, Vaishnava soul, thou art an angel fair. Lead me on to Vrindavan and Spirit's power declare. There rests my soul from matter free upon my lover's arm, the eternal peace and Spirit's charm, and Spirit's Spirit's love are all my chanting charms. So there rests my soul. When you go to the spiritual sky, what will happen? There rests my soul from matter free, becoming free from the bondage of matter. There rests my soul upon my lover's arms. In the embrace, in the loving embrace of our lover. Who is that lover? Krishna. Upon my lover's arms. the eternal peace and Spirit's love. There what we'll experience? Eternal peace and the love, the spiritual love, Krishna Prem. They're all my chanting charms. This is the destination, this is the goal, this is what we are going to achieve out of chanting the holy name of the Lord. So Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Namaiva Kevalam, Kalo Nasteva, Nasteva, Nasteva Gatirannatha. There is no other way besides chanting the holy name of the Lord. And when you do that, then what will be the achievement? There rests my soul from matter free upon my lover's arms. We'll go back to the spiritual sky in the loving embrace of our eternal lover Krishna. And there we'll experience the real peace and real love. And that is the destination that we have in our spiritual journey. So we are so fortunate that we have such brilliant personalities as our predecessors. We belong to a family, the most aristocratic spiritual family. This is our family. Bhakti Vinod Thakur is our grandfather. Show me a personality like him. We belong to a family. Bhakti Vinod Thakur, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Baladev Vidyabhushan, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, the Goswamis of Vrindavan, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Vasudev, Narad Muni, Brahma, Lalita Vishakha, Radha Krishna. So what can be a more glorious family than this? And we have become a part of this family due to our connection with Srila Prabhupada and this International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur ki jai, Srila Gadadhar Pandit Prabhu ki jai, Gaur Premanande. Does anybody have any question? Yes, Sitaram.
Those four books combined together are the culmination of the entire Vedanta.
Well, you see, absolute is absolute from whichever point you look at it. So what you said is correct, that Jaiva Dharma can be considered to be the precursor of Brihad Bhagavatamritam. But at the same time, it can also be said that Jaiva Dharma is the essence of Brihad Bhagavatamritam. Right? It's a prelude to Brihad Bhagavatamritam, and it's the conclusion of Brihad Bhagavatamritam.
Another issue is that the lives of personalities like Bhakti Vinod Thakur, it seems in the beginning simplistic and normal. That the world will say, yeah, he was just like us, confused. But the point was made later on. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was trying to make the point that anyone from any circumstance can become a great devotee. So the great Acharya Titus appears in the normal circumstances just to show the fallen conditioned souls that the path is open from all areas.
Yeah, just like Krishna becomes a cowherd boy and gives us a hope that somehow we can enter into his pastimes. To be a cowherd boy is not difficult, right? But it may be difficult to be a cowherd boy. We have to give up all our so-called civilization, right? In order to be a cowherd boy, we have to give up all our, so-called, achievements in this modern civilization and go back to the village and live with the cows, tend the cows from morning till night. What can be simpler than that? But sometimes it's difficult to become simple. So just like, you see, Krishna becomes a cowherd boy to give us a hope that don't worry, even you can come into my pastimes. To go to Vaikuntha is difficult, but to go to Vrindavan in Krishna's pastimes is not difficult. You don't need to perform austerities and penances. You simply have to become a simple-hearted village boy. Right? But in order to become the simple-hearted village boy, we have to give up this garbage of civilization, so-called civilization, the light of civilization, so-called light of civilization. And similarly, the great acharyas enact their pastimes in such a way to create hopes for us. Don't worry. You are not hopeless. But we have to understand that there's a difference between their life and our life. Their life is an enactment of their pastimes in order to achieve a certain purpose. Whereas our lives are the complex arrangements of karmic reactions. Yes, Krishna Archan. Give him the mic.
Should you kindly please explain where and how Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur predicts the appearance of Srila Prabhupada and how the Krishna Master speaks?
Yeah, okay. In the light of Bhagavat, in Bhagavat, a small book of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Bhaktivinoda Thakur forecasts that a time will come when the teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu will spread all over the world, and all the religions of this world, so-called religions of the world, will come under the umbrella of that and become unified. And then he makes the point that somebody will come and make it happen. He put it that way, that someone will come and make it happen. Someone very, very special agent of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, associate of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu will come and make it happen. Now who is that personality? Who already made it happen. Now at least we do not have any doubt, because we are seeing it. One person came, and in a most miraculous way, within 10 years' time, he made it happen. Which religion ever spread in such a way within a short span of 10 years' time? And what this movement is doing, attracting the most intelligent class of people. Other religions are like, say for example, Christianity. How did Christianity spread? Christianity spread over a period of 2,000 years, and with so many dubious arrangements, right? Political, economic, and all kinds of through all kinds of arrangement, Christianity has become a world religion today. How did Islam spread? With the strength of sword. And is still doing the same thing. Through terrorism, that religion is spreading. And that also is a result of 1100 years. But not 1500 years. Actually. Muhammad came about 1500 years ago. But Krishna consciousness spread in 10 years' time. Did Prabhupada bribe anybody? Did Prabhupada frighten anybody? Did some Prabhupada? No. And what kind of people are being attracted to this movement? The most intelligent class of people. So what does this mean? This proves that this movement is going to spread by dint of its own strength, own spiritual strength. Because the highest class of people will become attracted to this movement. Not only the highest class of people will become attracted, the lowest class of people, the people on the grassroots, the common man, mass also will become attracted to this movement. In one hand, there is a very profound spiritual understanding, and at the same time, a very simple proof of the validity of this practice. For example, like how people become affected, how people become attracted. Like when they see that we are doing something for them. And this movement can do something for everybody in the most effective way. For example, we are offering bhoga to the Lord, and then we are distributing prasad. Right? So the common people see that this movement is actually feeding everybody. So they are our well-wisher. They will see that this surrender to Krishna is simplifying our existence. The moment you surrender to Krishna, all our anxieties disappear. No more anxiety. Complete freedom from anxiety. The life becomes so peaceful, yet it is so full of prosperity. So this is how this movement is going to affect everybody. The topmost people with their intellectual assets, and the common people with their simple perception of the benefit that they are deriving from this movement. And in this way it will encompass the entire human society. Just by chanting Hare Krishna we become happy. So everybody wants to become happy. How to become happy? Just chant Hare Krishna. Everybody wants to become free from anxiety. How to become free from anxiety? Just surrender to Krishna. Everybody wants to enjoy. How to enjoy? By loving Krishna. And entering into his most glamorous pastimes. Any other question or comment? Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Gaur Premanande. Hari Hari.